What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Storyteller Jet with another episode of the That's So Fire Talk Show. And today we have a special guest here, all hailing all the way from Orlando to coming in the show and sharing some really great, amazing information today with us. So let's get started. Cory, such a pleasure to have you on the show. Ready to rock and roll?
Man, listen, I appreciate you having me, and it's not a lot of people that can get me out of red glasses and into the back of glasses, but you deserve it. So
yeah, like you should have wore it. Like we would have been like twin brothers over here, bald head, red glasses. You should have told me you were wearing the blue suit too, so I could wear the exact same thing. But,
I got the blue, I got the red, I got the yellow, whatever you need.
Brother from another mother. Let's go. So Cory, let's get the show started. Would like you to do a quick introduction. Who is Cory Charles? And we'll delve into the conversation today.
I love it, man. Who is Cory Charles? That's the question that I've been asking myself for X amount of years. But it starts, young kid from Brooklyn. My parents were amazing immigrants from Trinidad, put in a ton of work. I got to see the American dream in real life and see them come from struggle to success in real time. And for me, being, now flash forward, being a coach and a leadership coach and a sales trainer and a speaker, a keynote speaker, it is all about helping people not only live that dream, but becoming the best version of themselves. So I really focus on how can I help people tap into what I call their heroic identity to be that person, be that best version of themselves.
Fantastic. Went to your website. I absolutely love like the way that you designed it, like and showcasing like all the superhero kind of theme. Like I'm a huge Marvel fan. So when we started to talk about you coming in the show, I was like geeking out, just chatting with you and learning about what you do and the way that you've positioned your business as well. So let's start by doing a quick backstory. Right. So where did that passion of yours with like, superheroes and all of that, where did that get started?
Well, it's funny to go forward and then backwards. When I first launched the business, I had a great mentor and she said, if you're going to do it, be authentic. And I remember thinking of this idea of going down this superhero path and is it going to be too much? Because I'm just a big nerd at heart. I appreciate that I was able to do it because it's brought me closer to so many people that are also nerds at heart. So I say that lovingly, and I'm excited about that. But going backwards to the beginning, for me, comic books were always an escape. They were a way for me to see a different side of the world that didn't necessarily exist in my little bubble, my little small part of the universe. Going from a small one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn to, eventually going to a much nicer life. At the time, as a kid, I didn't really see those things as possible, but when I could pick up a comic book and read about Superman and read about Spider-Man and read about these larger-than-life heroes that come from small beginnings, it really painted a picture in me that anything really is possible. Beyond just the catchphrase that anything's possible, I really believed that, man, if I could live like these guys, I could do anything.
So this was not your first business. Obviously, you've had some other entrepreneur things that you were doing before. So can you take me back to how your entrepreneur journey got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, growing up and coming through struggle and then to success, I had that spirit from the beginning that I wanted to do different things. I think in most of those personality tests, they call me a maverick. I think that's a nice way of saying that I'm just a rebel, right?
Is that predictive index?
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah, I love predictive index.
So it's just saying that, I'm not a rule follower. So I always knew I wanted to do big things. I just didn't always know what that was. I didn't have a roadmap, a clear vision of what that could be. So for me, it was a lot of dibbling, dabbling and trying to figure out where my path was going to be, where my purpose was going to be. I got into sales purely by accident. I got into coaching purely by accident. And in a lot of ways, I got into my first business by accident, which led to some not so great control over the business because it was done, I'd say, for two reasons, not the right reasons to get into business, and also not a lot of purpose and design on what I wanted to do with the business. So,
Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about that business specifically? And when we originally talked to you, you mentioned that the business imploded. Yeah. Let's take me back a little bit on when did you start that business? Why did you start that business? And tell me a little bit about the backstory behind that business.
Right. So I could tell you the cute answer on why I started the business, but I'll tell you the real answer. The real answer is I had a massive chip on my shoulder at that age. I was around 24, and I just wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to show people that I'm going to go out here, I'm going to do something unconventional, I'm going to be different, and I'm going to make a really big splash in the world. So I would say humbly today that was the wrong reasons to start a business and was the wrong reasons. I think that can exist in the formula, but I don't know that it should drive the car. And that was driving my car, was that I'll show you mentality versus I feel really good about this thing. So for me, I had a sales team. We traveled. I ended up in different states, going all across the country. And I had a sales and marketing team, and we did direct sales. We did all the grunt work, all the door-to-door stuff, business to business. And when I say imploded, it imploded. I mean, housing fell through, the car troubles. I mean, you name it. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and it got me to, some people say rock bottom. I think if you could like take the rock and lift it, I was under that. There was a layer under rock bottom. I was in the basement of rock bottom when that business just imploded. And for me, the biggest struggle was understanding that that journey was over. And I was too stubborn to realize that we needed to go in a different direction on a different path. And it led to some really tough times, sleeping in the office floor, eating scraps. It became really a tough time to get to the next level. So that was a really tough time.
Yeah. So a lot of people in a lot of entrepreneurs out there, they might be hitting that same spot, right. The rock bottom or underneath the rock bottom. What are some of the advice that you would give to somebody that is hitting rock bottom right now and how they can get out of it?
Right. So I will say the first thing is your mentality. It's very easy, and I don't say this from a place of anything other than passion and empathy. It's really easy when you're in that spot to feel like you're at the end, like it is over, it's done. That failure feels fatal. It feels like there's nowhere else to go. And I will encourage anyone that's at that place, it's not fatal. For me, that was the biggest eye-opener, is I fought against this failure moment so hard that when it actually came, I almost did I'm still alive. It didn't kill me. It hurt. It was very tough. It was difficult, but it never ended me. It didn't kill me. And understanding that, okay, now that I know it didn't kill me, now what do we do? Now, how do we get back up? How do we pick ourselves up? And how do we get back on this horse? Because there are still things I want to do. Maybe we're just in the wrong vehicle.
Yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about that experience of hitting rock bottom, sleeping on your office floor or doing all of that, and as it relates to also working with your team, because there were other people that were relying on the business and doing all of that. Walk me through that process a little bit of going through that hard time.
Yeah, it was really difficult. When I explain it to people, it is living all the emotions that you can have all in a short amount of time. I went from making a ton of money, being on top of the world. I was back in New York, which is my home, and I was very happy to be back home and just on top of the world, to seeing everything just fall apart slowly. And as the team started to dwindle and people started to go away and lose, I had my right-hand man. I remember the moments very, very clearly. I remember seeing him get on a train to go back home. And that was the moment that almost broke me, because it was like, this was the last person. This was the one that was ride or die from the beginning. Finally just said, I gotta get off. I gotta do something else. And that was me just hanging on for something that was, it was not about saving the business. It was about pride. And once I realized that I can survive past this and it's not the end of the world, it's not the end of the road, then that really changed everything. That changed my perspective after some tough nights. But it was the most difficult time of my life, and I've had some difficult times in my life. But going through that and literally sleeping on the office floor, showering in the office bathroom, and doing all the things I could just to propel this business that was going nowhere. And as I look forward now to my current business, to me that distinction that I talked about earlier, the reason why I started the business is very different. Again, I didn't have the passion to restart and reinvigorate that business, because it was never about that. It was about the optics. And with my current business, it's about the work. So if everything falls apart tomorrow, I won't sweat it. I'll keep on moving. I'll keep on pushing, because it's about the work and it's about helping people be great.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to people that may have a failing business that are truly holding on to that business just because of pride or other aspects that they don't want to just like give up and doing that?
Yeah, I think you got to have a lot of serious, real conversations with yourself. Make sure you're understanding why you're in the business and make sure there's alignment there. Is there alignment between what you're trying to accomplish, your mission, and what the business actually delivers? And if there's alignment there, then keep fighting and don't give up and put your head down and go to work. For me, I was out of alignment. So no matter how much I threw at that, it was never going to magically fix itself because there wasn't alignment there. But once you find that alignment and you have something that you feel really passionate about, just keep fighting for it and understand that sometimes they're going to be really tough times, but they're designed to test you. They're designed to make sure that you really do want this. What I've learned in my life, coming from a kid that was so afraid to speak in front of people publicly, I failed speech class 3 times. Sorry, Mom. I failed speech class 3 times, and now I publicly speak. And now I get on stages in front of 1,000 people, and it gives me a buzz. Sometimes you have to fight through the fear. And for the business owners out there, it's that fear of failure. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to be the end of the road.
That's awesome. I'm so excited, or like, what's the word? When I hear people talk about the moments that they failed, that has become one of their strongest points in life, it gives me goosebumps every single time. Like from you failing speech class 3 times.
3 times.
You did not give up.
Yes.
You pushed through, and now you are doing that as part of your business, as part of how you impacting, future generations or the people that may need your services. This is incredible.
Well, I thank you. And I'd argue that thing that was my biggest fear for most of my life is the thing that gives me the most excitement today.
Wow.
But, sometimes you're staring at this, 500-pound lion in front of you, and it feels like an impossible task to take on that thing or climb that mountain or whatever your struggle is. But man, what I've learned is if you can get past that hurdle and get past that thing that scares you to death, on the other side of it is exactly where you need to be. Not where you want to be, where you need to be. And that's very true for me.
Fantastic. So you were sleeping on the floor of your business. Yep. You were taking showers in the bathroom. How did you bounce back from hitting rock bottom?
One of the toughest challenges of my entire life. At the absolute worst, where I knew that something had to change. I remember this clearly. It'll be in my upcoming book, but I remember this clearly. It was January 1st. The year leaves me now, but it was January 1st, and it should have been a great year. The Giants were going to the Super Bowl, so I should have been super happy. But I remember being in the office on a Sunday morning and looking at a paper that had been dropped off, and I had nothing to eat. I was literally, I had nothing in my stomach. I had some lunch meat on a piece of paper. It's a picture that I keep on my phone with the newspaper. There's the headline, Happy Blue Year, with the Giants on there. It was a blue year for me. And then a tiny plate with just a little bit of lunch meat. And I don't know what made me take that picture in the moment, but I'm so happy that I did. Because that has given me fuel when times are tough. I'm like, they're never that tough. Mm-hmm. But for me, the bounce back was, number one, it was letting go of the pride, letting go of the ego, being okay with the feeling of I failed, but understanding that because I failed, I'm not a failure. And that is a lesson that it's taken me very long to learn. And I think, unfortunately, most people never get that lesson, that a failure doesn't mean you are a failure. And once I learned that, and once I hung on to that feeling, I was able to see the positives that came from those failures, and that gave me enough strength to say, let's keep on fighting. There's some more stuff we got to do.
Yeah, you kind of stole like one of my next question over here, but I'm going to ask it again because I think it's going to be great for people. So you say all the time that a failure doesn't make you a failure. What advice would you give to people watching this that might be feeling like a failure?
I would say that's good. I would say if you feel like you are failing, that's good. Never feel like a failure. Those are very different things. Failure is your mindset. I never feel like a failure, but I'm happy to fail at things. What I've learned in all these years of being bad at things and failing repeatedly is that the failures are good. The failures give me lessons. I can't learn those lessons without taking the chances. It's learning to ride the bike. I got to learn my limitations. Sometimes you got to fall down to learn what your limitations are. So the failures are good as long as you take the lesson from it, as long as you grow from the failure. So I look at this failure as a positive. It's actually fuel for my success. Now, the minute I let that corrupt my mindset and make me look at myself as a failure, then it's impossible to see past that. And the person that sees themselves as a failure, it's really difficult to do brave and bold things because you have that soundtrack in your head. And it's not a good soundtrack. And sometimes we just have to turn the knob.
Yeah. You talk about that soundtrack in your head. It's all about, mindset. Right. So as entrepreneurs are growing their business, that's probably one of the biggest thing that they have is that voice between those two ears.
Right.
What advice would you give to people? What would you tell people about how to strengthen their mindset as they're going through a tough journey?
Yeah, I think first it starts with doing some deep work. And this is where it gets really scary, I think, for most people, is we have to look back into our past, kind of like how you started the show today. We have to look at our origins. And I've talked to so many people. I've talked to hundreds of salespeople and leaders and executives and athletes, you name it. But one of the hardest things is always to look back at our story for a lot of different reasons. A lot of times we have trauma or struggles or challenges. But once we can look back at our story, where we come from and our circumstances, understanding that those create our belief system, and our belief systems stay with us no matter how long or how old we get. So a lot of times we're carry around these belief systems that were developed when we were 8, 9, 10 years old. I got to tell you, that belief system at 30, 40, 50, I got to evaluate if that's an effective belief system. Is that something I should still be listening to? Most of us are still carrying around thoughts and beliefs that we had when we were kids because of circumstances. Whatever trauma, whatever struggles, whatever challenges, those are all important. They happened. But I have to be able to put that in the context of the story and understand that it is my ability to write the rest of the story how I see fit. Just because that's how it started doesn't mean that that's how the rest of the story needs to be. If I opened up a Spider-Man comic book and, Spider-Man falls off a bridge on the first page before he becomes Spider-Man, that's not a very good story. Understanding that there's still much more story to tell. So whatever your challenge is, hopefully you didn't fall off a bridge, but whatever your challenge is in the beginning part of your story, it is your ability to rewrite it that is going to make or break how you move through the rest of this life.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any exercise that you would take people through to change their mindsets?
Yeah, one of the things I do, speaking of origin stories and belief systems, is one of the things we look back and we look at that early childhood and we try to identify any of those, I call them phone booth moments. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but I try to identify any of these moments that were of huge significance to you in your childhood. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be any kind of physical or emotional trauma. It could be, a lot of different things, right? We don't want to bog the whole show up with that, but we look at these moments that could have shaped your belief system and how you make decisions moving forward into your adulthood. And once we can identify what those are, then we look at, hey, how has this affected me moving forward? Hey, maybe I'm making decisions in this way because of that happened 20 years ago. Now, my question always is that serving you or is that hurting you? Mm-hmm. If it's serving you, awesome. Let's use it as fuel. If it's hurting you, let's reevaluate if that's an appropriate belief system to have. And then when we can identify that, we start to see these, again, what I call phone booth moments, where if you think about, classic Superman, Clark Kent goes into the phone booth and he comes out as Superman. So I call a phone booth moment those moments where life puts you into that box and you have no choice but to come out different. Sometimes these phone booth moments happen and we don't realize it. And when we get really good at this, we start to seek them out. We start to look for those opportunities to step into the booth.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So you went through that hard journey. You've grown from it. What are some of the lessons that you've learned about sales or identity or leadership going through that journey?
Oh man, so much. I could fill up this whole show talking about that. But in sales, I'll kind of start from the back front. In sales, what I learned, especially being as the shy, introverted kid that I was when I started in sales, I learned that it's just a conversation, one human being to another human being. I have something that you want or need, and my job is to just explain that to you. And whether you like it or not, we move forward in the dialogue, and that's it. It's not this big life or death situation that we sometimes make it out to be. So in sales, really, I learned the art of the conversation. It's just being able to explain your point or your service or your product to another human. And then in leadership, it's that, but it's that kind of on its side a little bit. It's the same idea, but not so much about a product or a service, but it's about a vision. And as a leader, it's my ability to communicate a vision and a mission to someone else on my team. This is where we're going. Here's how we're going to get there, and here's your part of that journey, right? So that's a lesson in leadership, and also leadership is not showing people where to go. It's putting on your boots and going there with them, right? And your ability to take someone where they need to be, even if they don't necessarily want to go there, but being able to guide them to where they need to be. And just in general in life, again, I've said this so many times, and this is things that I live by, is just understanding that we are the author of our story. It doesn't matter where we come from, what we did before, what mistakes we've made, what challenges we've gone through. Hell, your DNA doesn't even matter. None of that matters. You have the pen in your hand. It's your choice what to do with it. You know, we look at superheroes and supervillains. They have the same origin story 9 times out of 10, the ones that matter. They have the same origin story, same trauma, same struggles. They just make very different choices.
Absolutely.
And that's my job, to help people make those choices.
Fantastic. So now that you've gone through that first business that imploded, and walk me through the journey of, I don't know if you started anything in between, but walk me through the journey of starting the superhero mindset.
Yeah, you know, so the superhero mindset, again, you know, when we talked about it before, it came from a different place. And that's why I knew that, you know, this is the universe, or this is, you know, God, or you know, whatever your belief system is, this is something that has to happen. I can't fight against this. You know, I went back into the corporate role, and for any of the entrepreneurs out there, you know that it's fitting a square peg into a round hole sometimes when you're not built for that life. No offense to anyone that is a corporate employee, but it just wasn't in my game plan. But I did fight it for a long time. And as a leadership coach and a sales trainer, I spent most of my time talking about mindset with the salespeople and the leaders that I dealt with. It became a thing where I was the mindset guy. And I realized that I'm talking about mindset so much because it's so important, especially in sales and in leadership. And, you know, for me, I talked about it so much, and then I was fighting the corporate machine, which I think we all know what that means. It just became a voice so loud that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I got to do this thing. I feel really good about being able to affect people and impact people in this way, with this message that I have, that this ability that we have to rewrite our stories. I don't think enough people are talking about it, especially in these spaces. So for me, that was the final push. And trust me, it was work to get my brain back there. But, you know, sometimes these phone booth moments happen when we look for them. Sometimes they happen, you know, when we least expect it. Yeah. For me, I fought against it, and then I got laid off. And I was like, okay, I hear you. I understand.
Yeah.
No more warnings necessary.
No more warnings necessary. If you had to describe the superhero mindset in a couple of sentences, what would that be?
Superhero mindset is that difference, exactly what I said a second ago. That difference between the hero and the villain is choice. The superhero mindset is understanding that you have the ability to be not only the best version of yourself, but you can be a person of impact, someone that inspires, someone that motivates, someone that's full of purpose, someone that's authentic, courageous, and someone that can help transform not only yourself, but the people around you.
Yeah. You talk a lot about identity, and you talk a lot about heroes, right. But you have a term that combines the both of them. What is the super identity?
Right. So the super identity. So I borrowed this, you know, full transparency, not in the same phrase, but if you see it, entertainers have this philosophy. Athletes have the same philosophy. High levels of business, same thing. You know, my favorite basketball player, Kobe Bryant, had the Black Mamba That was his alter personality, right? Beyonce has Sasha Fierce. That's her kind of alternate personality. Obviously, we know it comes from comic books. But in a sense, it is that ability to get into a state of flow, that ability to get into that Zen-like place where you're operating at your absolute best, that space where you're untouchable. If you watched Kobe play when he was the Black Mamba, he was damn near untouchable. You couldn't really do anything to stop him. I think we all have that ability. I think we all have that ability to go to that place where we're extracting every bit of the best that we have, and it's coming out on full display. So for me, that's your heroic identity, is that best version of you that's already there. It's not a mask. It's not a costume. It's not window dressing. It's that person that's way down in there. We're just letting them out, and we're letting them out consistently, confidently, and courageously.
Awesome. So you have that innate in you. How can people find their super identity?
Well, for me, and this all was, I talk about this work because I went through this work myself, right? I didn't have a framework, so I just did it the hard way. But for me, it started with a simple question: who would I be, and what would my life look like without any bounds, without any rules? What exactly would that look like? Who would the person? What kind of person would I be? What kind of life would I be living? And it just started from that simple question, and then I worked backwards from there. I figured out exactly what that personality would be. And then I realized there's a reason why that's calling me. It's because that's the person that's already in there. Somewhere along the line, and we all do this, that person gets buried down by years of trauma and failures and disappointments. And it gets buried down under all this layers of stuff and life. And it starts to just put you in a little box. The question is, what does that person look like without all that stuff on top? And once you realize who that person is, now we got to work on a trigger to get them back. Maybe it's a song, maybe it's a pair of glasses, right? What is the thing to get that person back up? And after a time, it's not something that we have to do consciously. And that's always the goal, is where I can get to that place unconsciously where all of a sudden it's showtime and boom, that me shows up.
That's awesome. So you mentioned like you did not have a framework when you first started and trying to find that over time. Very succinctly, do you have a framework that you can describe that you take people through to find their superhero identity? Yes.
So I'll make this really simple because it's a complex thing, but really simple. It's a 3-step process. So we look at where we started. We look at your belief system, which is your origin story, where you come from and what you've gone through. Then we also look at your thoughts, the things that are going through your head today. What thought processes do you have constantly? And then the last piece is your actions. What actions do you take? And if we can get all 3 of those things working together, your belief, your thoughts, and your actions, if all 3 of those things can work together, then we have a real good framework and a real good roadmap to unlocking that best version of us.
Absolutely. So let's transition now to talk a little bit about leadership and performance. You have a program that's called the Hero Factor program.
Yeah.
Can you describe what it is and who is it for?
Yeah, so the Hero Factor program, it's taking everything we've talked about. It's taking that identity, that heroic identity, and it's applying it to what we do. So the kind of the tag for the Hero Factor is becoming the best version of you in what you do. So for leaders, it's becoming the absolute best leader that you can be. It doesn't mean being the best leader like you've seen on TV or the leader that you had. It means just being the best version of you as a leader. Same thing for whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whatever your role is. How do I become that best version of me in my role?
Yeah. So as it relates to leadership and people finding, that true core part of themselves, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about leadership that people have?
Yeah, right. So there's a lot. I think the first couple ones is I think people oftentimes emulate what they've seen in leadership, good and bad. So they become kind of a mini clone of the leader that they had. Which oftentimes is not the best strategy for a lot of reasons. Not authentic, and also doesn't mean that person was a good leader just because they were your leader. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that we have to be a clone of what we've seen before. And then also I think that this idea that we have to almost wear a mask to be a certain type of leader. Maybe this is the leader that I think I should be. I always say we got to start with authenticity when it comes from leadership, and people really will understand that, they'll admire that, and they'll respond to that.
Awesome. We have a comment from a great friend of mine. Great to listen to your conversation. What's up? Thanks, man. Appreciate it. So we talked about misconception of leadership. What are some of the key ingredients that people should have to become a great leader?
So that's really an interesting question. And, for me, I don't think it's as physical as we think it is, right? I think we a lot of times I come from the sales world. So we see top salespeople and they get promoted to leadership because they're the top salesperson. Those skills are not the same thing. It doesn't mean a top salesperson can't be a top leader, but it doesn't mean that just because one, the other is true, right? So for me, it's about your heart. What is it that you want to accomplish as a leader? I always tell people that are thinking about moving from their role, whether it's sales or another piece of the business, that want to move into leadership, you'll know the feeling. For me, it was a really quick moment where I spent more time helping new people in my sales role than I did chasing my own sales. That's when I knew the shift had to happen.
Yeah.
Because I say this with love to all my salespeople, sales is a very me-centric role. Right? It's about me and my numbers and my goals and my customers. It's me. That's not a negative. That's just the reality. Leadership is the opposite. Leadership is about we. And when that starts to shift, you'll know it. You'll feel it. And for me, it was very clear, I care more about your sale than I do about my own. I'll help you get yours, even if it costs me time. And that was the shift.
Absolutely. And I think this is kind of probably the greatest shift that a lot of people should kind of really focus on. And me growing up, and even like when I used to live in Ohio, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is not solely focus on me, but focus on servant leadership.
Yes.
Servant leadership is, can you describe for the people watching this video, what is servant leadership?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly, I think, where you're going with that. Servant leadership is the idea that I want to make sure that I'm doing everything within my power to help you be successful. It doesn't mean that, I'm bending the rules for you, but I want to be a facilitator of your growth. I want to make sure that I help you achieve what it is that you want to achieve in your goals. And I'm going to give you all of myself that's going to help you get there. I randomly, this past weekend, ran into my first sales manager out and about, and I was so appreciative to see him because he was that kind of leader before I knew what that was.
Fantastic. I know a lot of people probably watching this, they are learning about leadership. What are some of the books recommendation that you would that you would give to some people watching this that are interested about growing as a leader?
Well, I think you can start. If you want to grow as a leader, you can start with anything by John Maxwell, because he's got about 1 billion books on leadership. So you can start there and just read until your heart's content. There are a couple other books that I think are important. I think 7 Habits is always a good book, right? 10 Habits. And I think Rhinoceros Success is a really good book as well. And one of my favorite, it's kind of a corny, almost kiddie book, but it's called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's just a book about change and adapting to change and being able to be nimble. And that is one I try to revisit once a year.
Awesome. How many times do you recommend people read a book? A lot of people, they just like read it and put it on the shelf. Like, have you ever reread books multiple times, or like you just kind of alluded to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's very important to read books multiple. Number one, because we're in different places. So a book that I read that was impactful for me 10 years ago would resonate differently today based off of where I am. A lot has changed in 10 years. I'm not sleeping on a floor anymore, for starters, but a lot has changed in 10 years. So the way that I look at that book, the way that I see that book would be very different. My favorite movie growing up was Jurassic Park. I still appreciate it today, but I see it through a different lens. I see it through different eyes. Same thing for a book. So I recommend grabbing a couple books that really resonate with you and revisiting them often. Maybe it's not once a year, but revisiting them as much as you can. And now we have abilities to read and then do audio and do mix and match. I mean, we can do a lot of different ways to stay kind of in the loop with those materials that we appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely highly recommend that. Like I was at Disney recently. My kids and my wife too really like the ride. It's a Small World. The last time we went there twice. That was the very first thing that we did in the morning, and that was the last thing that we did at the end of the day, because one of our kids was sleeping the whole time. But I'm sitting there like, going on, that boat around, and I'm seeing new things all the time. Like, oh, I didn't notice that the last time. Oh, this is new. This is new. So when you get a chance to step back and reread those books, and while you're going through it, there might be some other lessons that did not click for you the very first go around. But when you're reading them and just like, rereading them, some things are going to be kind of like, be new to you that would add to your overall knowledge.
Right.
My really great friends, shout out to Tom Kroll, the best coach for coaches out there. He teaches all the time about like, and this is unrelated to what we just talked about, but he teaches all the time about reading books like only 8 pages a day.
Yeah.
For anybody that wants to read and develop their leadership, take a book and just like read it like 8 pages a day. That would make a tremendous impact on your life. And for me, by just kind of doing that on a regular basis, I think differently, and I grow. I'm not trying to read 30 pages a day or 50 pages a day. I kind of do, but by doing the small increment actions, by reading such small part, kind of makes it worthwhile as well.
Absolutely.
So transition to the next question that I have. What is the biggest leadership lessons or tips or tricks that you always teach people?
Biggest leadership lesson. Again, I'm a student of learning the hard way. So I have an amazing mentor who she taught me how to not only be a leader, but how to allow people to live in their space. What I mean is sometimes as a leader, you have to give people the space to be great. And I think so many leaders, number one, are afraid to give that control, or two, are afraid of what could go wrong. And I was very blessed when I first got into training and leadership coaching. I had a leader that was very, very, very clear that this is your journey and you need to be free to take chances and take risk. Don't get too crazy, right? But understand that if you make a mistake, we'll fix it. But I want you to be you and explore what that looks like. And I always say that my growth as a sales trainer and a leadership coach happened, 50 times faster than it probably should have or would have, because I was allowed and I was given the space by an amazing leader to be free to explore and take chances. So I always say for leaders, you have to, it's scary, but you have to take your hand off the bike a little bit and allow people to be great. And you'll be surprised what they can do when, I'm not saying leave the room, right? but you take your hand off the wheel of the bike and let them pedal for a little bit. You stay close by in case, we fall, and if we scrape our knee, we're going to be okay. But allowing people that space to take chances and feel safe is such a huge leadership lesson, and it's going to allow people to grow leaps and bounds.
Absolutely. You talk a lot about the Black Mamba mentality by Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace, Kobe. Why does that resonate so much for you?
Man, so it goes back to that conversation about superheroes, right? And this was the first time I saw someone make the conscious decision of, I'm going to embody something different. And, obviously we don't have to get into details, but Kobe was going through some drama at the time. And he said, I need to be able to separate my personal from what happens on the court. And to see him say, you know what, when I'm on the court, I'm this assassin, essentially. And if you don't know the story, he got it from Kill Bill, seeing the Black Mamba and the way they described the snake as, being cunning and the deadliest striker in all of the animal kingdom. And just him watching a movie, and I get a lot of inspiration from movies, seeing him watch a movie and get that inspiration and say, that's who I'm going to embody on the court, and see that physical change happen. I mean, again, when he put on that mode, you could see the mannerisms change, the facial expression change, the intensity change. You could see it happen physically. and man, you couldn't do anything with him. Yeah, I mean, it was just he was just unstoppable, and that came around just at the right time where I was figuring out who I was and figuring out my identity, and saying, oh man, even if I don't know my identity, I can tap into something different. I can tap into something that, you know, maybe it's way down here, but it's that version of me that can do the dirty work, that version of me that can do the hard stuff. Yeah. That's what Kobe showed me. And then I was like, oh, that's the way to do the big things, right? And then after a while, that just becomes the default you.
Yeah. So we both look really great, and like, you know, with our glasses, those suits, like, you know, most importantly, the bald hair.
Right. Agreed.
So both of us, we are doing this. For me personally, is like, you know, the red glasses. I don't typically wear red glasses, but this is kind of part of the identity, right, or the part of like this is me, and this is kind of like, you know, this is my black member.
Right.
What advice would you give to other people how they can create that black member for themselves? Like, what are some of the steps that they can do or things that they can identify to create that branding persona for them to present themselves as that black member?
Well, you nailed it, right? So for you, it's the glasses. Obviously, we have similar tastes when it comes to our accessories. But for me, that's exactly what it is. Anyone that sees me out on the circuit doing what I do, I'm in a suit. Even if you catch me on a Zoom call, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, I'm in a suit all the way down to the shoes, right?
So you're not you're telling me that you're not wearing like, you know, underwear, no. Like, you know.
I'm too scared. I was always paranoid I would stand up and then something would show too much. So I'm fully suited. But for me, that came from I had a great coach explain what that was about. But for me, even when I started in sales, when I'm not, you know, when I'm clean shaven and I don't have this beard, I look like I'm 12. So when I started in sales, I was 19 when I started in sales. I looked like I was 9. I look like a baby when I started in sales. So for me, wearing, you know, the dress attire of someone of a higher status gave me confidence. And after a while, that became my armor. Was, you know, I'm in a suit. They weren't bright red and blue suits and yellow and purple suits, but they were still suits nonetheless. And it became my armor, my protective layer. As I've grown into my identity, the suit is not my armor anymore. It's my uniform. It's my cape. It's what I put on to go do the work. So for anyone that I talk to, I strongly suggest, let's figure out what it is that's going to trigger that identity in you. Mine is very superhero based. So if you've seen my socials, which you have, you're usually going to see me in the red, the blue, or the yellow. Of course, I do the greens and the pinks and all that other stuff. But if you see me in the red, blue, or yellow, that's a clear symbol that it's showtime, right? So for anyone else that I coach, whether is it the glasses that make you feel smarter or make you feel important, is it a tie? Is it, you know, I worked with a great client that just had a shiny rock that he would just rub in his pocket, and that was just the symbol to himself. Okay, turn it on, right? So finding out what it's going to take to jog up that feeling, whether it's something from a core memory or if it's something just to make you feel good, having that physical and emotional trigger is huge.
Fantastic. We talked about flow state earlier. What does it mean to get into a flow state, and what are some of the steps to get into a flow state?
Man, flow state. So, you know, again, athletes talk about this all the time when they're in the zone. For me, I remember being on the sales floor, and anybody that's been in sales, there are those sales conversations that go so well that you think to yourself, the next person that walks in this door, they're buying because I'm at my peak, right? And you know, it's been the old adage in sales for 100 years is, you know, the best time to sell something is right after you sold something, right? It's because you're just at your peak, and I firmly believe that. And as a person that again wasn't super extroverted, sorry. As an introverted personality, if I got up enough steam to sell something, I had to use that energy to sell something again. I had to go talk to people right away because it took me a lot to get that energy going. So for me, that's what flow state looks like in that case. It's taking that moment or that feeling when you're at your absolute best and carrying it into the next conversation. Lewis Hamilton just gave a great description about this in the movie F1, where he talks about, you know, that perfect lap that you're looking for, and where everything else shuts out, and you're just on autopilot, and you're truly in flow. You're in the zone. I think we all have that. I think we've all felt it, We just don't always know how to identify it. But once we can identify what it is, then we can backtrack how to get there. And once we can get there, now we're cooking.
That's where the magic happens.
That's exactly where the magic happens.
Yeah. About a year or so ago, I was very lucky to hear Benjamin Hardy do a presentation, and he talks about the flow state on there, and I thought that was like really great. And he kind of went down the science. Do you know who Benjamin Hardy is? And he lives in Orlando too. But that was an excellent presentation, and he kind of went back and kind of sharing that the people that are achieving so much is the people that figure out where their flow states are and create an environment to be in that flow state more often than not. And most of the success that they would kind of see would be in those moments that they are continually stacking that over time. So I probably need to reread that book. So
well, this is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. And he has a new book too that I can't wait to read, Scaling Something, that I can't wait to read as well. So you talk a lot about embracing your weird.
Yeah.
So what does that mean, and why should somebody embrace their weird?
Well, for one, the snapshot is weird's got me to where I am today, right? Talking to you on this amazing show, just from being weird. But we are so conditioned to want to fit in and want to be part of the mold like everyone else. I lived that for most of my life, especially, coming from New York to Florida, being different within itself, looking different. You know what that means, right? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of in me that wanted to just fit in and be just like everybody else. Number one, that was never going to happen because I'm a unique duck anyways. But two, it didn't need to happen. And I wish I could have talked to 8-year-old me and had that conversation with that version of me, which is why I do a lot of this work, is because I can't talk to 8-year-old me, but I have 3 boys and I can talk to them, and hopefully the people I can talk to their boys and their younger selves, right? But man, that weirdness, that stuff that if anything is kind of cool now. I wore glasses in elementary school, and it was nobody liked it. It was like a nerdy thing.
Yeah.
Now it's like hip to wear glasses, right? I was into comic books. Nobody liked that. Now I have a whole business based on comic books, right? So for me, it's embracing those things that seem weird, but it's getting you closer to that authentic version of you. And I think that's okay, even if it's weird to the rest of the world. I think you got to embrace it, but embrace it and be willing to scream it from the mountaintops and say, hey, this is me. This is the weird me, and that's what you get.
Yeah. You just mentioned authentic version of you. What does it mean to live your life authentically? And what are some of the things that you can do to ensure that you are being as authentic as possible?
Well, the first thing is when you're living inauthentically, and you may not be able to identify this quickly, but you'll feel it. You'll know, and someone watching this will hopefully have that moment of, oh crap. Living inauthentically is exhausting. It is the process of wearing a mask constantly and putting on a performance of who you think the world needs you to be, or who you think you should be to fit in or get ahead, right? That is exhausting. That putting on that performance 24/7, it will wear you down. So I talk to people a lot where they go and they do work, they enjoy the work, but they feel exhausted when they're done. It's because it's the performance. So that's the cost of living inauthentically. Living authentically, not only does it not take away energy, it actually gives you energy. It gives you purpose, it gives you fulfillment, it gives you joy, which is, I think, we need a lot more of today. But when we can live authentically, we don't have to put up the energy to wear that mask. The mask is not necessary. We are able to just show up as our true self. And again, to go back to what we've talked about, our true self is our best self. So the more that I can show up authentically, the easier that transition from my authentic self to my core heroic self, that's an easy switch, right? But if I'm wearing layers of mask and all these other personalities that I'm trying to be versus the real me, it's a long journey to try to get to that real version of me, that best version of me.
Yeah. So here at Evotion Studios, we talk a lot about magnetic authority. What are your thoughts about using personal struggles to really incorporate that in your brand and also in your messaging?
Well, damn, I might be on something I didn't know it. I didn't have a name for it, but yeah,
That's already taken, by the way.
I know. Yeah, listen, I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone. But I'm a huge fan of that. In fact, I think that's what shaped my journey today. I had a long time ago when I first started facilitating in front of rooms, people said, "We really appreciate that you tell us real stories. You don't, make yourself seem to be special or better than anybody. You tell us where you made big mistakes, where you failed, where you sucked. Like, you tell us all that stuff." And for me, that was almost therapy for me, but also the window to opening up, what I'm going through. And that gave me the space to challenge myself to be a better version of me, is by kind of releasing all those struggles. So I talk about having ADHD as a kid and not being able to shut my mouth for 2 minutes for my teachers. I talk about failing at business. It doesn't hurt me anymore. It doesn't scare me anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the most important thing that anybody can do right now, as it relates to creating content on social media and like doing all the different things that when you show up authentically, you connect on a deeper level with people. So magnetic authority for us is the merging of the failures, the success, the lessons learned with the expertise that you have, merge them together. Now you can create content that connect on a deeper level with people. So like the reels that we are going to be doing, all the stuff, we're kind of taking your personal stories and incorporating that and using that as your expertise. That is the easiest way to connect. Like when you're showing up authentically on social media, people can smell it a mile away. But when you kind of incorporate those types of stories and things like that, now even somebody doesn't want to buy from you or doesn't need your services, they can self-identify within your story, and that's where connections happen.
Absolutely, real connections.
Real connections happen for sure. So you have an upcoming book. You have a book coming up soon.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what that book is about and what are some of the things that the people are going to get from that?
Right. So this is like breaking news because I don't think I've publicly announced that. So it'll be coming soon. I'm working on my first book. And it will talk exactly what you're talking about. I can't use magnetic leadership, unfortunately, but I'll use heroic leadership. But it talks exactly through it. I give the framework for becoming that best version of you, becoming your heroic self. But I give the framework through my own life struggles and the challenges that I faced and how I was able to conquer those challenges. And in some cases, help others conquer those same challenges and the ability over time to tap into and identify what that me looks like and how do I bring them to the surface more consistently with more clarity. How do I make that happen more often? And after a while, again, that becomes close to your default version, right? It becomes close to that better version of you, becomes the real you, right? Because it is. So the book will explore that. It will talk about all the details of the struggles and the challenges that I had and people that I've worked with and I've coached. And I want it to be more than just a book. We kind of talked about it. I want it to be a living document. I want it to be a book that you read and then in 2 years later you read and it resonates differently with you. I want it to be something that at different stages in your lives, it can mean different things.
Yeah. When you first started talking about that, you mentioned the leadership framework.
Right.
Can you share maybe one piece of that information? Don't give the whole secret out on the talk show, but can you share one piece of that framework that you have created that you're going to be teaching through that book?
Yeah, so it's without getting into too much detail, it's a process called High Five Leadership, which we work through these 5 steps that really help you again be that magnetic leader, but more importantly, be that authentic leader. It talks about making sure that you have obviously integrity, making sure that you have intensity, making sure that you have influence or the ability to influence. It's these little things that we can put together in your leadership repertoire to help you become a really, really, really strong force of impact and influence.
Fantastic. I'm going to put you on the spot right here.
Okay, deal.
Okay, so if you had to give a quick elevator pitch about what the book is about, what would that be?
The book, so tentatively titled Heroic-ish, because that is what life is all about, being heroic before you feel ready. So if I could give the elevator pitch on the book, it's all about the ups and downs of becoming the best you way before you're ready. It is the mess and the success of unlocking that better you consistently and constantly.
The mess and the success.
Right.
That's kind of
catchy, right?
I'm probably going to steal that too. I'm joking. You, besides being, the founder of Superhero Mindset, you are an author. You're writing books and doing all of that. You are also a host from a podcast. What does your podcast talks about, and what are some of the things that people would be able to learn from it if they tune in?
Right. So the Big Hero podcast coming soon as well. They'll probably drop around the same time. So for me, it's about talking through people that have found success through struggle, people that have found success through immense challenges, and what the journey's been like, what they've learned, what they've gathered, because I think that's how we all learn and get better. So really, I get to talk to interesting people about their stories and how they got to where they got to where they are and where they're going. And more importantly, I love to talk about the other things that successful people get excited about. Whether it's, I'm a car guy personally. Mm-hmm. I like cars, like comic books. But what are the other things that are successful people into and what they get excited about? So I want to have just really great conversations with people that are doing big things. And I think that should be shared more in the world.
I love it. So as we are nearing the end of the talk show today, can you share with me the biggest lessons that you've learned, or maybe from a mentor or from a book, that has shaped who you are today?
Yeah, my mentor, again, I'm going to go back to her. She taught me the simplest, stupidest phrase, but it has lived in me for a long time, that everything is figure-outable. Everything is figure-outable. Meaning, whatever challenge we come across, and this seems like a puzzle that we can't crack, we can figure it out. We just got to put our heads down and understand what we're trying to accomplish, and we can do it. So that has been something that's lived with me in my biggest struggles, especially in starting a business. You're aware it's not easy, but whenever the challenges come around, I think about that. It's figure-outable. We can figure this out. Just got to put our heads down and do the work. And again, my new business is coming from a place of passion, so nothing scares me anymore.
I love it. So now that was the biggest lessons. What is the $1 million advice that you would give to somebody watching this as it relates to leadership or finding their identity or the superhero mindset?
All right, so simple 3 letters that turn into 3 words, LFG. Now, the dirty people online may think LFG stands for something else. For me, it stands for leap, fail, grow. Take the risk, be okay that you may fail, as long as you grow from the failure. So if you can live by those 3 things, leap, fail, and grow, you'll be super successful in anything that you do.
Awesome. It seems like you are really loving acronyms, like LFG.
I'm a sucker for acronyms.
And I think there is another one that I read on your website or somewhere like recently. I can't remember what it is. Maybe from the background that you shared earlier. And I was like, man, that's kind of pretty cool. I can't remember what it was, but
I wish I could help you. I got about 50 of them.
What other, like, some really... What are some of the acronyms that you have that has? What is the biggest one that you have that is like super powerful that could change the world?
So LFG is that was the title of my TED Talk. So that was the big one, was LFG. I have another one called BFD, which is taking bold action, being fearless, and then making sure that you take decisive action as well, right? But impact's probably the one you were thinking about earlier. For me, impact is not just a word. It was my key word, but it broke down into really my core values. So impact is inspiration, motivation, purpose, authenticity, courage, and transformation.
Absolutely love it. Awesome. Man, that was such a pleasure having you on the show. Such a treat. Learned so much from you, and I know a lot of the people watching this as well probably learned a ton. So for anybody that might want to learn more about the superhero mindset, how can they get a hold of you, and how can they connect with you?
Well, you can reach me directly at Cory at superheromindset.co. The website is superheromindset.co, of course. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. That's probably my most popular service that I use, but I'm on all the platforms at I am King Charles on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, all the other ones.
Awesome. What is your parting advice?
Parting advice, be bold. Don't be afraid to take chances, but always make sure that you're showing up as you. Everybody else is taken.
Boom. Let's go. And that was Cory Charles, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to follow him on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. He's mostly on LinkedIn. So make sure you hit that follow button and reach out to him if you have any questions or anything about, like, the superhero mindset. Let's go, baby. It's fire. Boom. Awesome.